Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Indeed hands-on webinar introducing the Indeed tool for evidence-based evaluation of preventing and countering violent extremism and de-radicalization initiatives. This is one of the series of webinars that's organized by the Indeed project. Indeed is a project which brings together 19 partners from 15 countries across the European Union, joined by smart hubs in many of these countries, which bring together practitioners, scholars, experts, and policymakers working in the field of preventing and countering violent extremism and de-radicalization, with a focus on improving and advancing evidence-based evaluation, evidence-based policy, and evidence-based practice. For those who would like to know more about the project, you can visit the project's website. You'll also see that coming up in the months ahead, we will be organizing a series of webinars together with a policy forum on the role of policy and policymakers, which will take place on June 27th and 28th. And then the major event of Indeed in 2024, the Indeed International Policy and Practitioners Forum, and final event of the project, which will take place on September 11th, 12th, and 13th of this year, 2024. But for the moment, we are very glad to welcome you to this webinar today. It's one of a series of webinars organized within the Indeed Knowledge Series, where we hold webinars on key issues related to evidence-based evaluation, developments, and results which are coming forward from the Indeed project, and bringing together also experts and practitioners from more widely in the field to look at innovations and developments in evaluation and implementation of evidence-based practice and policy in the field. We organize webinars. We'll also be launching shortly a podcast series and video interviews. And in the coming months, you'll find all of these materials available on the Indeed website. Today's event is really looking at one of the key deliverables of the Indeed project, the package, which includes the Indeed tool for evidence-based evaluation of PVE, CVE, and de-radicalization initiatives, the Indeed model, and much more. And to take us through that, we're joined today by Lena Maliki. Lena is the director of the Center for European Studies at the University of Helsinki and has been one of the key experts driving forward the creation of the tool, working together with Irina van der Vet, who's research coordinator also with the University of Helsinki. We'll then have a short session by myself where I'll be running through another key pillar of the Indeed project, which is the JELSA component on gender, ethical, legal, and societal aspects, which has been woven into all of the different components, both of the Indeed tool and to all of the deliverables and work within the Indeed project overall. After this, we're going to get a hands-on example, learning from the experience of Ingrid Rasmussen, who is project manager with the Finn Nørgaard Association. We'll hear about their experience in working with the Indeed tool and how they are approaching it as an organization to help support their evaluation practice and gathering of evidence for their programming and initiatives. But to take us through the Indeed tool, I'm going to hand over first and to welcome Lena Malki, who will be presenting for us the Indeed tool on evidence-based evaluation. Lena, please.
Thank you very much, Kai, and thank you everyone for joining us now. Let me just share my slides and we can then move on. So what I will do in the next 40 minutes in total approximately is to take you through the Indeed evaluation package. I will start by talking about it in a more general level, but then quite quickly focus on the tool, which is the newest addition to the evaluation package. This is called hands-on seminar for a reason. We will go through the tool in quite detail so that you get a good idea of how it can be used and what you can find in the tool. So starting with what this Indeed evaluation package is, as Kai said, it's really at the core of what the Indeed project has done, and in many ways represents our vision about how evidence-based evaluation should look like in the PVE-CVE field. So the purpose of this evaluation package is to introduce the principles and stages of evidence-based evaluation, and also to give step-by-step instructions on how to do such evaluations. An important thing to say right now here is that this whole evaluation package is explicitly designed for policymakers and practitioners. This is because one of the main things we have discovered and what we know about evaluation is that in order to do successful evaluations, it takes much more than just an evaluator to be invited, but it's also very important for those who are running and funding and planning and designing initiatives to have a good understanding of what evaluation is. Because many choices that are made when the initiative is planned and implemented will have a direct effect on how it can be evaluated. And this knowledge that will help the practitioners and policymakers to run the initiatives and plan them in a way that they can be successfully evaluated is what evaluation package wants to deliver and offer. The evaluation package is universal. What that means is that it can be used to design and implement evaluations for all kinds of PVE, CVE, and de-radicalization initiatives in different sectors, different contexts, different countries. This evaluation package outlines the general principles and stages and features of the evaluation process. It does not provide any ready-made template for how evaluation should be done, because we don't believe that evidence-based evaluations can ever be just sort of done in a way that you would just import a certain kind of template for doing evaluations. But the key feature of evidence-based evaluations is that they are always tailored to the context in which they are implemented. And this is what the evaluation package guides you to do. In more detail, what the evaluation package includes, there are 3 parts of it. One is the evaluation model. The second one is the evaluation tool that we will especially talk about today. And the third part are 2 e-guidebooks. What I will do next is that I briefly talk about the evaluation model and the e-guidebooks before we go into the tool. So the first part, the evidence-based evaluation model, you can find it just like the all other parts of the evaluation package in the Indeed toolkit. In the easiest way is to find this tab here, evaluation package, and you can find all those. And when you click the first option, you get to the evidence-based evaluation model. But quickly said, this model is our idea of what evidence-based evaluation means. It is mostly conceptual in a way that it's not in its own supposed to be act as instructions. But everything we have done about evaluation in this project is based on this model. And what this model does is that it combines the stages of an evaluation process as they are commonly understood with principles of evidence-based practice, which are the stakeholders' evidence and analysis, and looks at or specifies how these principles should play out in every stage of the evaluation. The principles of evidence-based practice are introduced in especially in the e-guidebooks that we will get into, but shortly said, the evidence is therefore underlining how evaluation should be planned and implemented based on up-to-date knowledge and using good quality data. The stakeholder component indicates that evaluation should be designed together with key stakeholders, and their views should be listened to. It should respond to the needs and values of the stakeholders. And the analysis refers to professional expertise, which means that those involved have the necessary expertise, including good understanding of the initiative and its context when designing and implementing evaluations. So these things come together in the Indeed evaluation model, evidence-based evaluation model. On the website, you can also find a little bit more detailed presentation of how these different components play out in different stages of evaluation. But as I said, this is not on its own yet instructions, but the really user-friendly instructions based on this model are to be found in the e-guidebooks and the tool that we will talk about today. The e-guidebooks, as I mentioned, there are 2 of them. They are already available on the Indeed toolkit as well, and they are available in 10 languages that are represented in the Indeed consortium as well. They are there so that you can browse them online, or you can also download them as PDFs. These e-guidebooks are also made for practitioners and policymakers to provide a good introduction and key information on evaluation. Both of them have a little bit different focus. The first e-guidebook is really a great introduction to evaluation. If you have limited experience and knowledge about it, it answers many of the questions that are really key questions in understanding evaluation and how to take that into account in different stages of the initiative. It talks about when to plan and conduct evaluations, who should be conducting the evaluation, what evaluation is actually, what kind of designs and methods can be used in evaluation, and what different types of evaluation are out there. It also gives some tips in how to successfully plan and implement evaluations. The JELSA component that Kai mentioned, the ethical and diversity and equality dimensions, are also dealt with in this e-guidebook, as they are also on the second e-guidebook, which is a great follow-up read or the next read after the first e-guidebook. This goes a bit deeper into evidence-based evaluation and the evaluation process. It explains the principles of evidence-based practice in more detail, as well as how the different stages of evaluation process when done according to the principles of evidence-based evaluation. There is guidance on quality standards for evaluation and how to critically look at your evaluation plan to make sure that it will produce good quality results in the end. There is also a section on how to plan an evaluation for an initiative that has already been implemented without any plan of how it should be evaluated at some point. So even if the initiative was not initially planned to be evaluated, there are still possibilities for evaluating it, and in the e-guidebook too you find instructions on how to map out what the options are at that point and what kind of factors play into what kind of evaluations can be done. It also gives instructions on how to plan evaluation initiative with evaluation in mind, so that it can be then evaluated in a later stage of its implementation. So this is what the e-guidebooks are, and they, as I said, are already available, as is the model. Now we will get to the tool, the main topic of this hands-on seminar. This is something that we have developed as the third component here, and this work has been led by our team at the University of Helsinki, and especially Irina van der Vet, who unfortunately could not be here today, has played a really key role in developing this. And this work, as all our work, is based on the work with the whole consortium, and we have also had several kinds of seminars and workshops and thematic groups with stakeholders from various sectors working in the PV, and de-radicalization field to understand their needs and evaluation requirements in this particular field. So what this tool is then about, this is partly or includes partly the same information as is available in the e-guidebooks, but goes more deeper into all the issues that have been covered there. I will go into detail in that, but at this point I would like to point out that the tool is also available online right now. But if you go there to the Indeed Toolkit right now, you see the beta version, which has been there because we have tested the first version, the beta version of the tool, to develop another improved final version that will be available very soon in a few days and will replace the beta version. What I will show in the slides is now the new version. So it's not exactly the same that you will see right now if you go to the web page, but that will change soon. And the content in the beta version is quite similar. So it's not a completely different thing, but there's an improved version shortly in your disposal as well. So what you can find in the tool. What is different with the e-guidebooks is that the information you will find there is more tailored and more detailed. We when we talked with the stakeholders and tried to understand what are the key issues that we should take into consideration when developing instructions and materials about evaluation, the most important thing that came up was that the questions related to evaluation are quite different at different stages of the implementation of the initiative. And that's why we have developed tailored instructions depending on where you are with the initiative at this moment. What we also have in the tool is step-by-step instructions for most common types of evaluation. This means really hands-on instructions on what kind of steps you need to take in order to complete the stages of evaluation based on the principles of evidence-based evaluation. We have included formative evaluation, process evaluation, outcome evaluation, and what we call case-based evaluation. I will come later into what these things mean, but those are the main forms of evaluation that we cover in detail, how they are designed and implemented. On top of this, there are many kinds of useful forms and reports and further resources that help with planning and conducting evaluations. There is an ethics checklist to make sure that you have covered all the important JELSA components. There's also quality standards for evaluation checklist think about the quality and quality of the evaluation plan and whether there's something that could be still improved. There's also an evaluation action plan template and a resource bank. So the content of the tool then is divided into 4 modules. There's one module for evidence-based evaluation as part of the initiative design. So what kind of evaluation you can do when you are planning the initiative, and how you should think about future evaluations when you are designing and planning the initiative, and when you are at the early stages of its implementation. The second module then focuses on a situation when an ongoing initiative is evaluated. So it provides instructions on how that can be done and what kind of evaluations are possible at that point, and what kind of requirements each type of evaluation comes with. Then the third module looks at how initiatives that have been completed or will soon be completed, how they can be evaluated. There's again a little bit different selection of possibilities available. The fourth model that we call evidence-based evaluation of single cases is a bit different from the other modules. This presents a more limited form of evaluation and a scenario for evaluation where only a small number of cases, like people attending a mentoring program, for example, are looked at in order to do a more limited evaluation and to learn from these cases by the evaluation to improve one's methods of working. We have included this particular form of evaluation here based on the stakeholder needs assessment. This seems to be something that is needed by many professionals in their work, and it's also an option that is available often when more large-scale evaluations, especially involving external evaluators, are perhaps not possible. So it doesn't replace other forms of evaluation, but is a good addition to the possibilities of using evaluation as a way of learning and improving initiatives. This tool is designed especially for PVE-CVE field. Many principles of evaluation are the same for all fields. So what kind of program or initiative we are talking about doesn't matter very profoundly. In a way, the principles are still the same, but there are some special characteristics in PVE, CVE, and de-radicalization initiatives and in this field in general that have also some impact on evaluating evaluations in this sector. We have highlighted especially these things throughout the tool, and in the first page of the tool you can also find sort of summary of these considerations. We have included this also because first of all, because we think it's important to be aware of these things, like, for example, that there are no sort of standardized evaluations methods yet in this field, or indicators how to measure success, and the accessibility of data is often difficult, and so forth. But also we would like to we have this here to make professional evaluators that are not coming from this field hopefully a little bit more aware of the special features of this field. So this is something that might be good reading also for an external evaluator in some cases. Now that we have got a general idea about what's in the tool, we will get into how to use the tool and what you can actually find inside those modules that I just explained to you. So in the first page, you have some general information about the tool and the box that I just showed you and these modules. And we hope that you take a look at what's on the first page generally, but the main content of the tool can be found in these modules. And the idea here is that you choose one of the modules that best corresponds with your situation, whether you are designing an initiative or implementing it right now, or whether you have or are about to complete the initiative. The idea is also that you pick only one of these. So in some tools and e-learning courses, you have modules that you complete one after another. But this is different in a sense that you will find everything you need for your situation in one module. You are of course welcome to take a look at all these modules, but it's not necessary in a way that you would miss some key information if you take only one module. These modules are designed to be used independently from each other. And each module has quite similar structure. And to show how they look like, I will now look at choose the module 2, evidence-based evaluation of ongoing initiatives. When you click this tile here, it takes you to the module's front page, and which looks quite similar for all of them. And each module has the same structure. First, you have an introduction section where you have a little bit of text and a video instruction on this particular module. That's where you can meet Irina, even though you didn't meet her today. And then below this introduction section, you have 3 tabs. The first one is what are my options? The second one is here process evaluation, and the third one is called resource bank. So you find all of these, and under these you find a lot of further information. Starting with the third one, the resource bank, it's the same in every module. This is basically a place where you can find a lot of further resources on evaluation. We sometimes refer in the instructions to this resource bank to look for more instructions on certain issues if you need them. So this will be part of every module so that you can easily find it from the third tab in the menu. But really where you start is the first one. What are my options? And what you find here is information specifically speaking to your situation about evaluation. Well, how you should consider evaluation and what the options are at the point where you are. For example, here you have about main types of evaluation available for an ongoing initiative, and then about requirements for these different types of evaluation. We always also include in every module information about conducting ethical evaluations that you can also find on this page. So when you enter the module, it's good to look at this what are my options part first. Then the middle tab is something that we have not covered yet. So in this middle tab, you find always one type of evaluation that is particularly common at that stage of the initiative. So in this case, it's process evaluation, what you find here. And what you find first here is an explanation about the most or what this type of evaluation is about shortly. And then what you can also find here is a start button. And when you click this start button, you are taken to another universe in a way. Then you really get into step-by-step instructions on how to do that particular type of evaluation. So information until now has been mostly to help you to understand the options that are available and how to think about the evaluation. And from the start button, you can really kind of roll your sleeves and start working on planning and implementing the evaluation in detail. And this, we followed now the process evaluation or the module 2, so we got process evaluation. But in the other modules, you have a different form of evaluation. In the module 1, there's formative evaluation, which is a type of evaluation for evaluating the initiative plan and its theory of change, or its pilot implementation, to take a look basically at the initiative plan, whether it's sound, whether it meets the needs, and whether it's in sort of in harmony with the available research knowledge that is out there, or to see whether the pilot implementation of the initiative is working. The process evaluation that we are talking here is an evaluation of the implementation of the initiative, to see whether it's going according to plan, and how different stakeholders who are involved view the initiative and its implementation, and also to find ways to improve its implementation. Outcome evaluation then looks at the results of the initiative, to look at what it has achieved and whether it has achieved its objectives. The case-based evaluation I already touched upon. It's a more limited evaluation of a small number of cases, and that kind of evaluation can be done typically done while as part of everyday work, not necessarily even as work done as part of any particular initiative, but it can be done in many kinds of situations. So when you click start, you get into a screen like this. And as you can see, you will get really step-by-step instructions now. You see that what opens is the stage 1 prepare. And under this heading, you can see steps in the evaluation process. And by clicking the steps, you can get more information on and instructions on each of these steps. And as we saw earlier in the evidence-based evaluation model, there are 4 stages, general stages in evaluation process. And these instructions are designed by stage. And when you go through these instructions, you are able to tick individual steps that you have taken, and they will then show on the bottom in the progress bar, where you can see which of the steps in every stage you have completed, and thereby track your progress. When you want to move from one stage to another, you can click next. And now I have clicked next a couple of times so that I'm in the last stage, utilize, where there's information about how to make use of the evaluation results. And then you can find at the end a click button called Finish that I recommend you click then, because after that you get a new window where you will have opportunities to produce reports of what you have done. What is important to know about the tool is that it doesn't save any information. So all clicking you do will be deleted after the session ends. This is also one requirement that came from stakeholder analysis, that the stakeholders wanted this tool to be not to save any information and for it to be usable without creating any kind of user account. So we have obliged to or follow that requirement. But you can save your work by choosing one of these reports. The short report, the first option there, provides you with what you see on the left. It basically lists all the steps in each stage and shows which one of these you have clicked. We have also included some room for notes if you want to add something there. And then there's also detailed report, which not only includes this information about which steps have been clicked, but it also has the entire text for every step. So if you prefer to have the tool or this part of the tool where the step-by-step instructions are given for one evaluation type, you can also go to the end and choose the detailed report, and you will get it in Word format. And we have consciously provided these to you in Word format so that you can add your own input here and work with them yourself. Along the way, when you go through the steps in these step-by-step instructions, you will also find the forms and checklists that I mentioned earlier that are also included as resources in this tool, and they will appear at the point when we think that you need them. So you have the ethics checklist there. You have quality standards for evaluation checklist to reflect on the quality of your evaluation plan, whether there's something that could or should be improved. And there's also a form called the evaluation action plan, which is basically a form where you can fill in your own plan, all the key information. It also guides you to remember also at this stage everything that is relevant to think about when planning an evaluation. It may be also a good document to produce and share together with the stakeholders so that there is good understanding of what the evaluation is about, as evidence-based evaluation should always include active interaction with stakeholders, key stakeholders of the initiative, and of course those who are involved in its evaluation. Then just quickly, the step-by-step instructions for the fourth module on evaluation of single cases look a bit different, because we have produced a little bit more simplified instructions for this type of evaluation, as it is in many ways a little bit more simple. But the basic idea is the same, that you can click the steps and then get more information, and there's a PDF report for your use as well here. We have now pretty much concluded the tour around the tool for now. Just reminding again that the new version of the tool will be available within the next few days. And also a sort of a sneak preview of what is still coming. As the e-guidebooks are already available in 10 languages, we are also looking at translating the tool into the same same languages, and this will happen later during this year, and they will also become available on the Indeed toolkit as just like the tool in English is right now. I stop here for now, and I hope if you have any questions also in the future about the tool, or if you have some materials that you think would be good to link to the resource bank or anything at all, please feel very free to be in contact with me or Irina here at the University of Helsinki. Thank you.
Lena, thank you so much for taking us through this very practical and hands-on introduction and dive into the Indeed evaluation tool. For everyone who's taking part and joining us today for today's webinar, if you'd like to get a hands-on experience of the tool, you can go to the indeedproject.eu website that was shared in the beginning and shared by Lena during the presentation. We'll also put the link in the chat there. You can go through the Indeed tool, see the different components that Lena has just taken us through in her presentation. And again, it is available free of charge for use. It is now being updated and also can be found in 10 languages to try and make it as practical and accessible for practitioners as possible. We're now going to move to the second session of today's webinar, which will be just a brief presentation, this time actually done by myself, of the gender, ethical, legal, and societal aspects of the JELSA tool, applying JELSA in the evaluation methodology and approach of the Indeed tool. Now, the JELSA materials in the Indeed project have really been pioneered and developed by Norbert Leonhardmeyer and Hanna Reiter, both joining us from the Indeed consortium partner Vicese. One of the pioneering approaches of the Indeed project has been to really look at how do we engage with gender, ethics, legal, and societal aspects in every aspect of the evaluation process, and also when thinking through designing and developing evidence-based policies and evidence-based initiatives in the preventing and countering violent extremism and de-radicalization fields. Now, JELSA, as we've already shared, stands for gender, ethical, legal, and societal aspects. And all four of these, gender, ethical, legal, and societal, are both significant areas which need to be engaged with when designing evaluations and when designing evidence-based initiatives. There are also areas where we look at the overlaps and the intersectionalities across of them. What's important to understand is that every single evaluation is, in fact, an exercise of power. It's about making decisions. What do we evaluate? How do we evaluate? What do we consider to be evidence? Who do we engage with? Who does the interpretation, the making sense, the understanding of the findings from evaluation processes, and who takes decisions based upon the results of those evaluations? Gender, ethical, legal, and societal aspects are present in every single evaluation process, but in general, we often don't necessarily engage with them or think through them deeply enough. And this is why the Indeed project has placed a significant focus on JELSA. Now, the origins of the work in the project on JELSA are really going back to a human rights-based approach and the UN's pioneering efforts globally, and work brought forward by civil society workers, academics, experts, and practitioners from many parts of the world to look at human rights-based approaches to practice, to policy, and to evaluation. And as I said, it engages with these four dimensions: gender, ethics, legal, and societal aspects. And we're looking in particular, you look at it from every aspect, but in particular, really focusing on three different tiers of JELSA application. One is when understanding stakeholders, target groups, and ideologies, and making sure we're looking at the gender and ethical dimensions of that, looking at the legal implications when we're engaging, and also the broader societal dynamics. Also of the initiative that is being evaluated, and having a robust intersectional approach and JELSA lens that you take to designing the initiatives and when we're engaging with them. but also that we need to apply JELSA to the evaluation process itself, including to the evaluation team. Now, as Lena has shared in the chat, you can find more about this in the e-guidebooks. It's also thoroughly built into the tools itself. I'm just going to run us through quickly some aspects of it and hopefully open it up for more during the discussion after. But as you'll see, Lena introduced the 4 different phases of the evidence-based evaluation process: preparation of the evaluation, design, execution, and utilization. In the tool, as it exists on the platform, you have JELSA integrated into each individual phase of the evaluation. And here, just as one example, in stage 1, prepare, for example, for a formative evaluation, as we also saw on Lena's presentation, you have an ethics checklist. This is engaging with one component. You have it woven into all of them. But if you're using the tool on the platform, you click on the ethics checklist, it will bring you to this Indeed checklist, which you can use online. You can also download it. And this can help you to think through the different aspects of JELSA when designing your evaluation and also when designing evidence-based initiatives. If we look for a moment at the different components of JELSA, under gender, for example, when thinking through preparation of your evaluation, you may need to consider, are there specific gender dimensions of stakeholders or target groups that we're engaging with? Are there gender aspects of the ideology that is being addressed in the initiative, or even of the theory of change of the initiative that will be important to understand? Are there gendered assumptions, or is gender being addressed explicitly in the initiative, and again, also in the evaluation design, including the composition of the evaluation team, as well as, for example, the composition of stakeholders and respondents that you're engaging with through the evaluation process? In essence, altogether, you need to have a robust, thorough, gendered analysis of the context in which the evaluation is being done, the stakeholders involved, the initiative, and the evaluation itself. And you may wish to prepare and design for specific components. For example, looking at, does an initiative or a project engage differently with different genders? Does it take into consideration the different impact of the initiative or of the context on different genders? Engage thoroughly with gender on all of these dimensions and putting together your evaluation team. When designing the evaluation process, you need to consider gender specificities of radicalization in the context and radicalization processes of recruitment narratives and ideology, and then look at how are these reflected in the initiative, and decide tools and methodologies to evaluate, ensuring that these address gender effectively in all relevant dimensions. Again, gender is engaged and affected in our initiatives, in our evaluations, whether we are explicit and conscious of it or not. The point of this is to make ourselves conscious of it and to use the tools embedded in the Indeed tool, as well as others in the field, to help us address it in practice. When looking at execution, gender dimension should be reflected in the evaluation documents, the methods, the activities, the significance of gender dimensions of the context and initiative, radicalization issues, the gender dimensions of doing the evaluation. For example, if you have people from one gender speaking with people from another who may have been affected or impacted by violence from the first, then you need to see, will that affect the responses? Will that affect the trust and the engagement? All of these issues are important to think of. It's really about not simply looking at compliance, but understanding that this is a key dimension which should be engaged with ethically, and to build it into ongoing reflection and feedback to help make stakeholders and participants in the evaluation process more aware of these aspects. When looking at utilization, so using the results of the evaluation, it's also important to look at which conclusions can the evaluation draw about the impact of the initiative with respect to the gendered nature of radicalization of the target group or the context. Are there lessons, are there practices that can be learned? Also, when implementing both the publication or the results that come from the evaluation, but also the evaluation practice as a whole, really working to make sure that the evaluation and its implementers, how it's done, are not themselves reproducing inequalities, power imbalances, misogyny, or sexist radicalized rhetoric within the evaluation and its results, and then to reflect with stakeholders and communities on the gender relevant dimensions. And you have this for each of the different aspects of JELSA. So ethical, looking at all of the aspects of ethical implementation of an evaluation. How do we make sure that we're not doing harm to stakeholders or communities involved? How do we ensure that when we're implementing evaluation, we're not reinforcing, either because of our explicit or implicit ideologies and ideas that we may have ourselves as practitioners, as evaluators, that we're not reinforcing discrimination, stigmatization, exclusion, or unequal and unfair treatment. And to understand really how discrimination and exclusion may themselves be drivers of radicalization and the narratives of victimization, and then how do you have a respect-based approach to engaging with that, understanding them as narratives, but not practicing unethical, dismissive of other narratives and ideologies, and to use ethics when analyzing the context of the initiative being implemented. Did the initiative take into consideration ethics? Was it implemented in ethical ways? Here, together with gender, you also look at aspects like PSEH, preventing sexual exploitation, abuse, and harassment, also child safeguarding and protection, making sure that all of these ethical components of good implementation are taken into care, both for the initiative and for the evaluation. When designing the initiative when designing the evaluation, it's extremely important to make sure that you are implementing an evaluation, making explicit and working to overcome possible biases and prejudices that you may have. You want to look at how to ensure non-discrimination in your approach, engaging with stakeholders, engaging with peoples of different identities, genders, cultures, opportunities, ideologies. Sometimes in evaluation, evaluators may unconsciously replicate their own preferences and ideologies and how they value or weigh responses from different groups. It also brings the lens of inclusion and participation, and making sure both looking at the transparency and accountability of the initiative being evaluated, but also making sure that in designing your evaluation process, you take into consideration issues of transparency and accountability, looking at the scope of the evaluation, the terminology that's employed to make sure that it's accessible for people, how stakeholders are engaged, and again, as shared here, at which point in which roles. And then also looking at execution and utilization. Essentially, the tool takes us through all of these. It takes us through the legal aspects, also with guides, for example, on GDPR implementation. So if you're designing evaluation processes and you're wondering how to make sure it's GDPR compliant, we have materials on the website that are available for that, and a learning note that's developed by Vichese for this. Looking at making sure that you've established the legal basis for the evaluation. Do you have legal access to the documents? Do you use the documents in the right way? Do you have informed consent? Are you managing personal data correctly? And legal also taking into consideration balancing human rights and making sure that those are being respected in implementation of PCVE and de-radicalization initiatives, checking if initiatives themselves have compliance mechanisms and if they're being implemented within the agencies, and taking this through the design, execution, and utilization stage. And then also the societal aspects. And in societal, we're really working to understand also, again, issues of power, issues of inclusion, making sure that you're looking at how to actively include community representatives from the start. The Indeed model of evidence-based evaluation draws, and as you'll see in the guidebooks, also speaks to empowerment and participatory-based evaluation, making sure that communities are treated with respect, making sure that you engage with societal stakeholders so that the evaluation authentically reflects the experiences of different communities. And in your preparation phase, make sure to map possible risks and potential negative impacts that the evaluation can have. Is it going to put people at risk? Can it have negative impact on different stakeholder groups related to the methodology and the implementation of the evaluation? The guidance materials in the tool on JELSA also encourage to involve communities throughout all the steps of evaluation, preparation, design, execution, and utilization. Think about feeding back the findings in the evaluation and engaging with the stakeholders to make sense of them so that you have authentic empowerment and ownership in the community. And when it comes to executing, look at the impact of the initiative on the community, also unintended consequences, reaction to the initiative, the evaluation by the community and society, and including the community throughout the execution. When it comes to utilization, think about who are key stakeholders, key societal actors, who should have that information, who should be involved in getting the results of the evaluation. Is there possibility for strategic partnerships which can take forward learning and results from the evaluation, and much more? It's a very rich field. The team from Vichese, Hannah, and Norbert have done a thorough job going through this, but you'll also find that these issues of gender, ethical, legal, and societal aspects, and how to have cultural competency in evaluation are really at the forefront of much innovative work and practice by evaluators in the field. And in the Indeed project, we've done our best to also bring these in to the tool to support practitioners and agencies in practicing them and implementing them when designing our evidence-based evaluation initiatives. That is all for me on this part. Now, to help us with the hands-on aspect, I want to hand over to Ingrid Rasmussen. Ingrid, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. Ingrid is the project manager of the Finn Nørgaard Association, and she's going to share with us their experience and how they are approaching using the Indeed tool for their own evidence-based evaluation. Please, Ingrid.
Yes, I'm just going to try and share my screen. So there we go. Can you guys see me and my PowerPoint?
Yes, it's coming through clearly. Thank you, Ingrid.
Great, that's perfect. So yes, my name is Ingrid, and I'm the project manager, one of the project managers at the Finn Nørgaard Association, and we're a small NGO stationed in Copenhagen, and we work with preventing radicalization and securing the rights of victims of terror. And I've been invited here today to talk about our experience with evidence-based evaluation. And it's a little nerving for me because normally when doing presentations, I would do it on something that I'm the expert in. And here I feel like I'm still very new. We started getting into all this evidence-based evaluation stuff this year, and we're only still in the planning phase. So we haven't carried out an evaluation yet, but I will still tell you about our experience with it, and hopefully you can use it for something. There we go. So during the next 15 minutes, I will give you a brief introduction to the project that we are trying to evaluate. And instead of giving you a whole description of the process, I'm going to dive into, I'm going to focus on two specific subjects. I'm going to focus on one thing that has definitely made my life easier during this process, and I'm going to focus on one challenge that I was very worried about in the beginning, but which I'm starting to see how I'm going to overcome. And the thing that's made my life easier is how we have defined a theory of change for our project. And the challenge is about implementation. So how am I going to implement evidence-based evaluation in our organization? But let me start with a brief presentation on our project. So the project is called Relatives Act, and it is a peer network. We call it a think and action tank. I don't know if you can actually use that word in English, but we use it in Danish, and it's a word describing a place, a group who comes together and tries to develop new knowledge, as well as trying to create action, doing something. And in this case, we are of course trying to do something in the field of PCVE. The target group of the network is victims of terror, or survivors of terror, and former radicalized, and relatives of both groups. So you could also say that it is a network for people who have encountered violent extremism in one way or another. And what we do in that network is that we have at least 2 workshops every year for our members, And then we give support for the members when they want to do projects themselves. So we encourage them to to start their own projects. It could be political work, it could be telling their story, writing a book, something that is focusing on PCVE or securing the rights of victims of terror in Denmark. And we wanted to evaluate on this project. And in order to do that, I was really lucky because I got some one-on-one help from Irina, who's unfortunately not here today. And Irina and I sat down and we've had 2 meetings. The first meeting was me talking her ears off, I think, about our project, about all the details. As I've told you, I'm the project manager, so I am like until up over my head in this project. I know all the people, their stories. It's all very like engaging for me, and I can talk for hours. But at our second meeting, Irina told me that before we can do any evaluation on this, we need to make a theory of change. So we tried to define that together, and that was really useful for me. How can you say it? It wasn't difficult actually. I mean, I knew most of it already. We just haven't defined it in our organization. I, as a project manager, hadn't defined a vision. I hadn't written it down. So what I needed was someone or a template, a tool like the one you find on the Indeed webpage that would ask me the right questions in order to define a vision, our objectives, our activities, and a way to monitor it. So the inputs that we would use to measure whether we are doing what we set out to do, and namely try and secure the rights of victims of terror and prevent radicalization. So I think what I experienced in those 2 meetings with Irina was very typical for a practitioner. We are super engaged in our projects, and we know all the small details, all the challenges and all the success. We know everything, all of it, but it's sometimes quite difficult to get up in that helicopter perspective and look down at it and see whether we're still going in the direction that we set out to go in the beginning. So that for me was a first step in order to really start evaluating. And then when we had defined the theory of change, something that really have helped me afterwards, we sat down and started to do the evaluation plan. Lena also showed you this plan. I think it's called the evaluation action plan or something like that. It's a super useful template that you'll find on the webpage. And what happened to me when we started to look at this together, me and Irina, was that my main concern with this evidence-based evaluation was how can I implement this? How can I make my organization actually use it? Because I know how difficult it is to implement something new in an organization, whether it is a new financial system, a new way of documenting your work, a new way of cooperating in your team. Learning new things and implementing them is difficult, and it takes time, and it's often a little bit challenging to convince people that it's a good idea. But when we sat down with this evaluation plan, I realized when we went through the steps that a lot of these boxes that you have to fill out, that you have to describe and define, I would not be the perfect person in our organization to define them. Let's say, for example, the one in the top left corner. defining the evaluation objectives. When Mia and Harina tried to fill it out, I came up with some ideas, but afterwards I realized that my director, or our director in the organization, she would be the perfect person to fill out this one, maybe together with me, but because her job is to be up there in the helicopter and have an idea of what our organization is doing as a whole, she would also be a lot more qualified to define the overall objectives of this evaluation. Or at least it would be really good if we did it together. So it dawned on me, okay, maybe here is a link to how I'm going to implement this. Maybe I can implement this new method by engaging my colleagues, my director in the process already from the beginning, from the very first steps of the planning. So I was like, okay, how can I use this further down? Can I maybe invite more people on this project? And I definitely can, because we also have our analyst, our academical genius Maya in the organization, and she would be perfect to take on board when we're coming down to the boxes and the parts about stakeholders, evidence, and analysis. Because for her, stuff like JELSA, and stuff like the perfect data collection is just it's everything she's burning for. And she would be the perfect idealist to actually come up with some ideas of, like, how do we collect the best data? Who should we talk to? Who should we bring on board? And how should we analyze it? But you should definitely do it together with me, because I would be the realist. I would be the one knowing the GDPR rules. I would be the one knowing when an activity would be disturbed by a questionnaire for the evaluation and stuff like that. And then I think there's a really interesting box, the one saying utilization of results. Because when we get down there, that's when we start discussing what we want to use this evaluation for. Like, how can we communicate it? How can we make this knowledge that we're collecting, how can we make it useful for someone? And on that stage, I would definitely bring in our communications manager, because he is the creative one. He's the one who would be able to help us not just make a report, but to look at the objectives of the evaluation and say, okay, you want to evaluate the process of and the project. You want to evaluate whether your methods are working, and you're hoping to use it to convince some politicians that this method is something that we should use more in civil society in Denmark. If that was our objectives, he would be like, yeah, okay, then we should make, I don't know, a social media campaign or a little pixie version of a huge evaluation report with the graphical illustrations and stuff like that. So by going through these steps and by planning my evaluation together with my colleagues and my director, I think I've found a way to like come around that challenge or that worry that I had about implementation, because by engaging them, by giving them ownership of the evaluation, and by making them help me define it, the whole method is becoming more interesting and valuable for them too. And I don't know if I should call it a side effect or but another perk of doing it like this is that it would actually also be a more qualified evaluation. Yeah. So I think that was just like some focus points for me on how we have used evaluation so far, and the challenges and the good stuff that we've met. And I'm not going to use more time because I think maybe there's coming up questions.
Exactly. Ingrid, our next part will be, and for everyone, our next part will be the questions and discussion forum, really inviting everyone, if you have questions for Lena, for Ingrid, for myself, or all of us in any aspect of what we've shared, please do use the chat space that's available. If you're connecting with us on Zoom, on your computer, phone, or tablet, you should have a section where it shows a series of buttons. You'll either see the chat button there, or sometimes it's where you have three dots and more. You click on the three dots and more, click on chat, should open the chat space for you. So if you have questions, anything that you would like to ask of Lena, of Ingrid, of myself, please do click on the chat and we will share that question for you. Actually, we have one that came from earlier on in the webinar, Lena. This was directed to you, I believe, by Felix Combreau. It's how do you ensure the high quality of data that is used here, that is used in the evaluation process?
In the evaluation process, in the Indeed tool and Indeed e-guidebooks, this is something that we have touched upon by including a lot of information about what evidence means and about quality standards that should be considered there. That's why we also have the checklist there. It ultimately is, of course, on whoever implements and designs the evaluation to make sure that they follow the instructions and reflect upon that. But that sort of guidance is definitely part of the tool and the guidebooks, and a key part of evidence-based evaluation for sure.
Thank you very much for that, Lena. If I could, just complimenting and supporting what Lena said, it really is these hands-on tips and guides that are built in all throughout. But another aspect, which is, I think, really significant to our field, brought forward by the Indeed evidence-based evaluation model, is what was pioneered by our colleague Stefan Kloss and the consortium working together, learning from medicine, where it looks at the three components that Lena also shared with us. What is the best existing knowledge in the field, both internal to the organizations and the field more broadly? So that takes us to look at what has been done, what has been learned by others, what do we find from evaluations. And the Indeed project has also created a repository of risk and protective factors with a huge number of reports and studies that have been gathered there, and that can also be drawn upon. The second pillar of the evidence-based evaluation model is the community and stakeholder values, culture, contexts, and preferences. And very often evaluations have been designed without enough engagement with understanding or even simply engaging with communities and stakeholders that are affected and where the initiatives are being done. The third is the professional practitioners' expertise and judgment. And these three components, when taken together, also help us to validate and test the robustness of knowledge and the information that we're getting. And one of the things that you can do when implementing evaluation is to give feedback of the data that's gathered and engage with it, with the stakeholders, with the community, so that you get their perspectives on it and make sure that you're understanding things correctly, that you haven't missed things. And all of these are tools and steps that we are really taken through when using the e-tool, the Indeed tool to help us in the e-guidebooks. All right, I'm just going to do a check on the chat to see if there are any other questions. We've got some feedback on the tool, but we don't have, from what I am able to see at the moment, other questions yet. I'd like to invite you to share with them. There is also the question from Felix on what are the KPIs for this tool. Lena, do you wish to address that?
KPIs that we recommend to be used in evaluations, or for the tool itself, whether it has succeeded. Not sure which one it means, but we do not, I can answer both questions. We do not recommend any particular KPIs because key performance indicators, because we believe that the indicators should be designed for each context and initiative, because well, the initiatives in this space have such different objectives, and they are implemented in so different contexts that it's impossible to standardize the indicators in that sense. For the KPIs, I believe we are monitoring how many use this, and we also have an ethical assessment of the tool also undergoing, where we look basically at all our products, also not just while we have developed them, but we also still have an outside ethical evaluation of all our activities. I don't know if you guys want to add something to that.
No, nothing to add for me, Lena. Thank you so much for that. But we do have a question from Vasileos Theophilopoulos, thanking all speakers, and a question to Ingrid. Can you elaborate what kind of evidence will be useful in your project for your evaluation?
Yes, of course. In a project like ours, I think there's both qualitative and quantitative data that could be really useful. So the qualitative data that I would really like to dive into is interviews from our members, our network members, on their experience by being part of the project or by being part of the network. But also quantifiable data, such as how many members do we have, for how long are they part of the network, how many projects, like as I said, the network members are encouraged to start their own projects. So how many projects are going, like individual projects are running at the moment, and what is the effect of those? So there's all sorts of data. Also administrative documents, notes from interviews with the members that have been done, like doing earlier on. We have questionnaires every time that we send out, every time we are making a workshop, just in order to, not for evaluations as such, but in order to get better and to hear our members' opinions. But those could also be used. So various ways, like all different kinds of data.
Thank you, Ingrid. And as we wait for more questions, Ingrid, I would love to connect with some of the things that you shared in your presentation as well, which I think are really interesting for us as a field and a community of practitioners. One of them was you spoke about how relevant it would be to engage with other stakeholders and other colleagues in your organization right from the design phase. And that's something we would so strongly recommend. Part of the practice we've seen in much of the field over the last 30, 40 years of evaluation is sometimes an agency or an organization will almost hand over to a consultant or hand over to the evaluator. You're the expert, design the evaluation for us. And that's actually what we've seen to be one of the bad practices in the field. An evaluator can be wonderful, but they will often not know your organization, your specific context as well. And unfortunately, sometimes evaluators don't even know the PCBE de-radicalization field. So we have seen how important it is, one, to have really expert evaluators, people that actually really understand, know how to do evaluation. Two, it helps tremendously if they have contextual knowledge and understanding and thematic expertise in the field. But also, if you want to design an evaluation process well, then right from the preparation and design phases, engage with key staff and experts within your organization. Have them be part of the conversation about what do you want this evaluation for? What are you trying to understand? And the other aspect that you touched on, Ingrid, which the Indeed evidence-based evaluation model and tool bring forward right from the beginning, and as Lena shared in her presentation, we need to think about utilization from the start. One of the things that we've often seen in the field is this culture or approach to evaluation where we think the job is to do the evaluation, you produce a report at the end of it, and then it's done. The challenge is that those reports have not actually been effective ways of getting out the information about what is learned to the people who need to have it, the practitioners, the policymakers, the agencies, and organizations. Sometimes they can be great, but there's so much more we can innovate in the field now to do utilization well. Can we bring it out in learning notes? Can we have workshops with staff or stakeholders and partners to reflect? Can we develop change management plans where we go through the results of the evaluation, identify key decisions, key changes that we may need to take in our programming or in our organizations, and then actually look at how do we implement that? There's a lot of innovative work that takes us forward, but these key aspects engage the practitioners, engage the organization, and very often even engage community representatives and stakeholders when thinking through what you want to understand and achieve in an evaluation, and think about utilization right from the beginning as you're preparing your evaluation planning, as you're preparing your initiative. And another interesting new frontier in the field over the last 10, 15 years, the whole aspect of process evaluation. Here, it's meant differently from what we spoke about evaluating the process. Here, it's looking at the process of evaluation as one in which you bring forward learning along the way. So you don't look at only bringing results at the end, but you look at building participatory and reflective practice into the evaluation so that we can be learning in real time. We have just a few moments left in the webinar for today, and we have a few questions that have now been shared by participants. Another from Felix on, could Indeed consider providing evaluators to end users? Self-evaluation is notoriously difficult. So this aspect of who does one turn to for evaluation and evaluators that agencies and institutions could look to. The second is a question by Bashir Al-Shria for, are there any plannings to issue an Arabic language version of the Indeed results? Thank you, Bashir, for your question as well.
I can maybe cover these. Yes, I think one of or what has come out from all the discussions we have had with stakeholders is that one clear obstacle for having more evaluations is that there are not that many professional evaluators who understand this field yet, and also often a question about whether there are enough resources for evaluation, whether actually funding is allocated for that. We in the Indeed project unfortunately do not provide external evaluators as part of the project. We have maybe more addressed another issue, which is that not all policymakers and practitioners have sufficient knowledge about evaluation. And I think Ingrid has explained through the example very well why it's important for the practitioners and policymakers also to have this information, and because it's so much depends on the monitoring and documenting during the project, and also evaluation ideally should be designed to facilitate learning and not as a control mechanism. And if the target is learning, then really the policymakers and practitioners should be the ones who are listened to as stakeholders and those who are involved in different roles in the initiative. We hope that with the materials we have provided, the practitioners and policymakers know also what are better equipped to ask the right questions from the potential evaluators then because they are really needed here, even if there is a place for internal evaluation also, but it's a different thing from external evaluation, obviously. In terms of more translations, this is what is planned within this project, but we are of course open for suggestions what to do in the future. These materials will of course be there also after this particular project ends, and there are maybe possibilities to develop them further also in another context, possibly in the future.
Thank you very much, Ingrid. Thank you, Lena, both for your contributions. Thank you, Lena, for your response now as well. I think this largely takes us to the time for the webinar itself. We'd like to use our last few remaining moments to share with you about some of the exciting next steps and upcoming components of the Indeed project. I should also say there was a question about whether there would be a network of evaluation results. And one of the proposals that has been brought forward by Stefan Kloss, who's one of our colleagues in the project, within the Indeed project, we have developed a repository of risk and protective factors. This itself is one of the huge results and deliverables of the project, an incredibly innovative and significant resource for the field, bringing together hundreds and hundreds of analytical publications, evaluation reports, and others into a tool which allows you to access at your fingertips, searching by questions and topics relevant for you, the key findings from this massive collection of relevant research and evaluation reports in the field. So there is the repository of risk and protective factors. We're now working on a repository of evidence-based initiatives. And another idea which Stefan proposed some months back and which we're putting out into the field and hopefully can come forward further either in a next iteration, a future iteration of Indeed, or in the work of the new knowledge hubs, is the idea of having a repository of evaluation practices, methods, and tools specific for the PCVE and de-radicalization fields. Now, looking a bit further, I'm just going to share my screen with you some of the other resources and materials that are being developed. It's a very exciting period in the Indeed project. A lot of work has been done. One of the first things we'd like to do is just to put out there a save the date for upcoming events. We have a policy forum which will be held online on June 27th and 28th. The first day on the 27th will really be focusing on the role of policy and policymakers in introducing the Indeed tool, the Indeed trainings, the Indeed repositories to engage with this critical role that policymakers play in the PCVE de-radicalization field, but especially as one of the stakeholders who needs to understand the importance of evaluation, why evidence-based evaluation matters in the field, and also the importance of using evidence to design policy and practice. So that event will be on June 27th and 28th. You'll be able to see it coming very soon on the events section of the website. We'll also be sharing it across all of our social media channels and the Indeed newsletter. And if you're not yet subscribed to the Indeed newsletter, you can go on the Indeed website, indeedproject.eu. You'll find the newsletter there and be able to subscribe. In addition to the exciting June 27th and 28th policy forum, in September, on September 11th, 12th, and 13th, we will be holding the second Indeed International Forum for Policymakers and Practitioners on From Evidence to Practice Towards Improved Policy and Practice in the PCV and de-radicalization fields. This will be both part of the final, the forum and then the final event of the Indeed project, really bringing together everything that has been done. It will also be a forum where we are inviting agencies, law enforcement agencies, the European Commission, the United Nations, different agencies and practitioners in the field to come together. We're also inviting institutions and agencies who wish to be partners in the preparation and the design of the forum. We'll have multiple workshops and sessions that are taking place throughout, addressing key questions in evaluation and evidence-based policy and practice in the field. So we warmly invite you to join us in Warsaw, Poland on September 11th, 12th, and 13th. Now, there were questions about evaluators and making evaluators available in the field. Within Indeed, we've also taken a major step to pioneer and innovate advances in training in the field. We are developing training manuals which can be used by staff colleges, NGOs, law enforcement agencies, and others. And the training materials we're creating cover two topics. One is training people to do evidence-based evaluation. And that can be important both for training people who will be evaluators, but it's also incredibly important as one of the core competencies for any of us that are working in the PVE, CVE de-radicalization field. So this training is really intended to help raise awareness and understanding of professionals and practitioners in the field of why evaluation is so incredibly important, how it can help us to improve practice and improve achieving meaningful results in our interventions and initiatives in the field, and improve evidence-based policymaking. The second training material, and there's a training support package, guides, manuals, video resources that go with all of this. The second is on designing evidence-based initiatives. And this is almost, you could say, revolutionary for the field. A lot of the time, we're doing the initiatives and the approaches we do based upon our experience, based upon what we're doing in our sector or what we think works. We have rarely really engaged robustly with how to design initiatives based upon actual evidence to help guide us in what can work, what might not, how, and what are the things we really need to be aware of as practitioners and as agencies to be achieving real impact and addressing the root causes and drivers of radicalization and violent extremism. Now, we've already done 2 prototypes of these trainings. We've also done a training of trainers in Cluj-Napoca, Romania just last month. In the coming months, we will be rolling out cascade trainings in at least 7 countries across Europe. So if you're interested in training opportunities and getting trained, again, please keep your eye on the Indeed website, Indeed social media, and Indeed newsletter. We'll be sharing information on all of the upcoming cascade trainings. In addition to the in-person cascade trainings, we're also creating an e-learning course that we expect to go live coming up now in June. We'll let you know when it is. We'll launch that. People have already begun to subscribe and to register. And this is a course which you take at your own pace. So it's not something that you have to set aside specific time to take and fit every single week, depending upon a schedule, of course, that is brought to you. Instead, this is a course designed to be accessible and available for practitioners across Europe and around the world. And like other materials from the project, it will be available in the 10 Indeed languages. We also have more in the series of the Indeed Knowledge series of webinars, video interviews, and podcasts. And in fact, a question was raised about self-review. We have and about RAN. We have a wonderful video interview just completed with Fenna and Martin from Radar Advis, who developed the RAN guide on self and peer review as part of a broadening of the toolkit of evaluative approaches that can be used. Now, in all of our work in Indeed, we are trying to make sure that we're also bringing forward JELSA in everything that we're doing. So we have created a survey. We're sharing with you here the QR code, if you're able to see that on your screen and use your phone to take that, a short survey to ask for your assessment and your feedback on how have we engaged with JELSA in this webinar itself. Was it taken up? Was it presented? Was it clear? Did we make sure that we were also engaging with JELSA in our work? You can do the survey now by clicking on the QR code with your phone. We'll also share this in a post-webinar note that will go out to everyone together with the links to the tool, links to other materials that have been developed and the website itself. And there you'll find, again, a link to the JELSA assessment as well as a feedback and evaluation form for this webinar where we would welcome your reflections. How was this webinar for you? Did you find it useful? Getting your evaluation of the webinar and also your recommendations for what we can do further. We hope that today's webinar has been interesting and useful. Again, I'd like to thank Lena and Irina and the entire consortium, all of the partners in Indeed, for the huge work that has gone into creating the Indeed evidence-based evaluation tool. Also our partners at ITTI and Deep Blue, bringing this onto the platform, designing it, and all of the colleagues and agencies and professionals, practitioners involved with the Smart Hub partner network across Europe. A special thank you also to you, Ingrid, for sharing with us your experience. I was getting a lot of messages from people during the webinar saying how much they really appreciated getting a hands-on view of getting this implemented with an organization. If you're looking at how to do evaluation, or if you're looking at how to do evaluation of a specific project, program, or initiative within your organization, or if you're now designing an initiative or a program for the future and you want to make sure to think about evaluation right from the beginning, again, please visit the Indeed website and the Indeed evidence-based evaluation tool. It's been designed to help us as colleagues in the field, and we hope that you will find it useful in your work as well. Thank you very much to everyone. Good luck with all we do further, and hope to see you, those who wish, at our next Indeed webinar, which will be this Thursday, for the launch of the International Center for Counterterrorism's M&E Center of Excellence. Later on in June, we'll also have a webinar on JELSA and many other exciting ones to come. Wishing everyone a good day. Thank you for having joined us.